Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Assorted Duties. I am your host, Arthur Reynolds.
And today's episode will be on parenting. There are some questions that will be asked in this segment, and there will also be some statements I make. So let's just jump right into it. There are some issues with people and how other people perceive how another person is parenting, whether they're doing a good job or a bad job. They have a tendency to do that without taking any consideration of their own parenting skills. Some people even have the audacity to question a person's parenting skills when they don't even have children. How that is, I'll never understand. But anyway, my some of the questions I will have are like, what do we think about women raising their sons to be men? Do we feel as though they are capable of doing that? Do we feel as though the way that they're raising them not in the best interest of the son? So just that in general. The questions that come about, women raising young boys to become men. We've had this discussion talking about women raising their children, their sons in particular, to be men. Some of the women are, in my opinion, raise some of their sons not to be men, but to be their man, to be the type of man that they want in their lives. And because they didn't receive that type of man, they try to mold their sons to be this type of man for the next woman. But is it really for the next woman, or is it for themselves? Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that there's a incest type of thing going on here. But some women, these women are failing to tell their sons that they need to be treated like a king. So that's just some of the things that I've seen. We've had debates about at the office, at my job, I should say. And it just comes to question when a woman is raising her child to be the type of man that they would like to have in their life, and the type of man that they wished their dad could have been, or would have been, or would be, or should be. So those are the reasons why I think when they are trying to mold their sons to be men, that is the approach that they take. This is where men come into play, though. I feel as though a woman can't teach a man how to be a man, and a man, a father, can't teach a young lady how to be a woman. He could teach her, as well as she could teach him, how to conduct themselves in the presence of other male or females, how they should try and make sure that they are being respected by that other person. But that's the beauty of parenting. The men and the women are to complement each other in this aspect. You're supposed to try to help that person raise that child so that that child has the best opportunity moving forward in life. This isn't a matter of, you're not my son's mother, so you can't tell him what to do. You're not my son's father or my daughter's father, so you can't tell her what to do. Again, if this person who is the mother or who is the father knows that the advice that other person is giving to your child is in the best interest of your child, as well as good sound advice, then it doesn't matter whether they are or are not their parent. Their uncle isn't their parent, their aunt isn't their parent, their grandmother is not their parent, but we don't have no problems in our aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, which would be the child's grandparents, giving advice, and sometimes the advice that they give are not within the best interest of the child. But again, men, you play a very vital role in raising your children. We don't realize how much influence we have on our sons and daughters over the mothers. But you're too busy, I don't know, looking for the next one night stand, chasing your tail, whatever it is you're doing, other than being the father, parent that you should be. Showing up to Sunday football games or Saturday basketball games when the game is being conducted isn't the only part of being a dad. How about getting him to practice? Making sure he gets to practice on time. How about making sure he has the right equipment when he gets to where he needs to be? Being prepared. Because that's what a parent is supposed to do. A father's job, a mother's job, is to make sure that our child or our children are prepared for whatever it is that they may come across as they leave that front door. When they go to school, they need to be prepared. Book bag, notebooks, pens, pencils, erasers, little note tabs, whatever it is that they're supposed to have when they get to school. They should be prepared for that kind of thing when they get there. And I understand that not everything is capable of being met financially as a father or as a mother. But it's more to raising a child than just financial. It is a very important role to play as a parent when you are capable of providing that nurturing love, if that's the best you can provide. The confidence that you can instill in that child is another great asset to life that you could give them. When you are present to their games, to their church recitals, Christmas plays, musicals, sporting events, when you take part in their rehearsals, that is very important to that child too. That child is looking at that there, not just the fact that, hey, my dad don't have the money, but my dad's at every game. My dad's at all my practices. My dad makes sure I get to my practices. He makes sure that I get to rehearsal if I'm having a play with whether it be the church or the school or just a neighborhood community that may be getting together and trying to put a play on. That is, very important. And a child remembers those things. A child looks at those little things when they reflect on what my dad did for me and what my dad does for me. It ain't just, well, my dad couldn't buy me my sneakers. My dad didn't buy me the violin that I wanted, or the flute that I wanted to play, or the drums I wanted to play, or my football equipment that I wanted to wear or that I needed to wear and have. But he made sure I got there. Women, again, in parenting, it isn't a matter of just because he couldn't help you financially at that point in time that you need to sit there and badmouth him to the child. And you just, you're badmouthing their dad. That's not healthy for the child coming up, for the relationship between the father and that child. It's not healthy for you yourself. You know what you're dealing with. You understood what you were dealing with at the time you left him or while you're still there. You know what you're dealing with. So with that, you need to accept it and either make do with what you have if he's at least trying to be supportive, if he's at least trying to pick the child up from practice or even get the child to practice, if not both, he might not be able to get him to the game because he might be working, or for whatever reason, he's just unable to get the child to the game. But he did take the child to the practices. That's a help. That's a help. That's something you didn't have to worry about when you got when that child was taken there by his father or her father. So if he can contribute in little ways like that, that's a plus. And don't just badmouth him for that. I mean, the little things he's able to do, you want to knock that right out. And the child doesn't see none of that. You see it. Because you want him to do more doesn't make that fair to the parent who's unable to do more. If he's capable of doing more, or if he's doing more for one family and not his and not yours, that's unfair as well. I get that. But it's about the child, if I'm correct. As we know that what works for me as a parent doesn't mean it's going to work for everybody. It may not work for you. Like my methods of parenting isn't suitable for everybody. And some of the methods I've implied in my parenting as I was raising my children was a little old school and a little harsh. And as I look at that, I can see that and I know that. And I've even had conversations with my children pertaining to some of my methods. And I get it. Were they mistakes? Can't say they were mistakes, but they were learning lessons because they didn't get hurt other than when I spanked their butt. And they didn't die. They didn't go hungry. They always had a roof over their head. So I never left them with people that abused them. My children were never abused. Maybe verbally, I might have cussed them out a little bit here and there, but that was some of my upbringings that came across in my parenting as well. Some of the things that was done to us as parents, we did pass it on to our children because we saw that we didn't turn out that bad at all behind some of the things that was done to us. And I know my children can look back and say the same thing because I look at the success that they are having in their life. So I can't be mad at what I did. I just know that, what I did doesn't mean it works for everyone. So I read some articles that was talking about parenting. And when I read these articles, they failed to mention what I just said. What works for one doesn't mean it's going to work for everyone. And these books on how to parenting, I always feel as though parenting is on-the-job training. That's what parenting is really like for me. It's not a book that's going to tell me that, you need to put your child in a timeout. Well, timeouts don't necessarily compute in my mind. What I do know is as we go on in parenting, we learn on the fly. We learn as things move forward. We learn that we have to change and adjust to circumstances that come about on an everyday basis. There are pros and cons to that. You have your pros to teaching or raising your children my way. You have pros and cons to going based off of what the books say, to the so-called experts. The so-called experts I question because you wrote a book about parenting and you want to classify yourself as an expert and you don't have no children, or you have one. And because you have one, that doesn't make you an expert on this here, or because you took some parenting classes, doesn't make you an expert on these kids. If that's the case, if you're so great at raising these kids, then my question is, why do we have detention centers? Why do we have juvenile facilities for misbehaved children? I mean, but you're so great at raising these kids because you can do such a bang up job with them that you're going to tell me that what was working in my household, my child had and has a little bit of fear for me, but respects me, knows not to push my envelope. But so far, when my child knows those things, but you're encouraging my child to call the cops because I didn't discipline my child the way you like me to discipline my child. So, but anyway, moving away from that, I'm going to ask a question here. What is a good age to stop providing for your child? Now, this is something that I've collaborated with my nephew, and he asked me that question, and he said, what is a good age to stop providing for your children? Now, we all have our own different time scales and reasons on why we provide or why we assist our children, later on in life. The question is 18 the cutoff limit? Is that the cutoff limit? When they are 18 years old, they started college, or they left the house and they're in the military, or they're 18 and they're still at home. They might be working and everything of this nature, but is that what? And the question is, when you say stop providing, that is a question in itself. Providing what? When you stop providing, gas money for his or her car, or do you stop providing an allowance with them doing chores around the house? Do you stop paying for their car insurance, making their car payments, cleaning their room, things of this nature? Like, at what point is the cutoff point? Do we shut that down? And only you can answer that question, because I can't answer that question for you. Because I myself, the question when I have to answer that question is pretty much when they leave your home, or not leave your home, when they're pretty much 18, 19 years of age. And at that point in time, you see what direction they're going in, positive or negative. They're going in a good way or a bad, or they're taking a good path or a bad path. Doesn't matter. Either way, at 19 years old, you know which direction they're going. And by that point in time, you now know you're not going to get it. You're not understanding. So this is what we got to do. Now, if your child is, let's just say they're old. You haven't really been providing for them, helping them, or do anything of that nature. They've been trying to do their own thing for the last several months or years, and they slipped. They fell on hard times. Change of life came about and started kicking their butts. You see your son is now 20, 24 years old. He's out on his own. He has his own place. He's had his own place for over a year, and now, like, literally on his own, like his own place, not no roommates or anything of this nature. And he's trying. He's managed to last a year on his own, and then he falls on hard times. Him and his girl is at each other. She wants to be vindictive, taking for child support. And I'm not going to say he's not being a good dad, or he is being a good dad. Just leaving it at the fact that she took him down for child support. Now, he was struggling to live where he was living anyway, but he was living, and he was able to provide for himself, to keep a roof over his head for his child, to have a place to come when whenever he had his child. And then this hits him. So now he's unable to. So he needs to get himself together again because everything hit him all at once and it's changed his thing. Now he has to readjust himself in life. Is it fair to let him come back home to get himself together for a little bit? I'm going to say there's not a problem with that. As long as he or she understands that this is temporary. This isn't no long-term situation. This is a 6 months situation. 6 months that I'm willing to give you to stay in my place rent-free. All I ask is that you keep your area clean. You keep my area clean, which is my kitchen, my house in general. And that you maybe buy a little bit of food. If you're going to eat, then buy something that you like to eat. I don't mind you eating the dinner that we prepare. You know, if I'm going to prepare a meal, I'm okay. I'm okay with that. You engulf or indulging in our meals, so that's not a problem. But I do have a problem with you thinking that I owe you this meal. You know, that I don't want you to ever misinterpret that I owe you anything. Yeah, you're my child, but you're a grown person now. And one thing's for certain, two for sure, Angel Sexton, is that you will not come into my household thinking that you rule anything. There can only be one alpha male in this household. One king in this household. Get your money together and get back out on your own. That's not optional. So, providing for your kids, you know, circumstances dictate different things. And for me, that scenario I just gave is one of the circumstances where I feel as though can change that 18-19 time frame. And if you're trying to help out, and if they're doing good in their life, they, you know what I mean, and they fell on hard times, but if they were just neglecting their duties and fell short and they're being very irresponsible with their money, then yeah, you can't come back here. You're being very irresponsible. If I see you trying to do right, then I'm willing to help you. But if you're not trying to do right, I can't help you. It's not that I can't. I won't help you. Put it that way. My mistakes that I made as a parent, raising my children, is helping me to be a better grandparent. Or I like to be called Pop-Pop. So it's helping me with that. Along with the communication from my children, who may have felt that some of the things I did was a little rough, a little harsh, you know, and some of the stuff I can agree to that may have been a little harsh and a little rough. But some of the things I'm not changing because I feel as though it might have been that way. But the reason for that, you failed to understand why I did what I did. I always had this thought process in what I was doing was, my thought processes was, I'd rather have my children fear me in the beginning and as they get older, respect me in the end. The fear wasn't a fear that they were scared to talk to me or say something to me of anything of that nature. The fear was when I said, I'm getting ready to tear your little ass up, then that's what I meant. They understood the different tones. They saw the body language, the facial expressions, all of that. That gave them the indication when enough was enough. And as they got older, they knew that, and it was less of me doing that. So that was my concept. Would that work for you? I don't know. Only you can make that decision. You know what I mean? On whether it would or wouldn't work for you. But that was my process. And as my kids got older, I needed to be less strict on them. But yet they understood the most part of, listen, stop that, cut that out. I'm not happy with that. I'm not having that. And then as they got older into their adulthood, it was less or none of that. I didn't have to do any of that. And now I look at how my children are raising their children, and I see that some of the things I did to them that they're incorporating into their parenting. And that's how it's going to be, a life circle. But there's things that I did that they will not do in their parenting. So that is a good thing. You know what I mean? Because they're learning their parenting, their skills. I can give you my advice on what I think, but it doesn't mean it's going to work. It doesn't mean you're going to have success with some of the outcome. So, last but not least, subject that I want to ask is it right to force your kids to play sports? I say yes, it is, because they learn social skills, they learn responsibility, along with don't ask for something you really don't want. That's one of the lessons. But you find friendship, you find things out about yourself that you didn't think was in you. If it wasn't for some of these parents forcing their kids to play sports, they would end up just sitting around the house doing nothing and not developing much social skills. COVID had shut down a lot of things to where it was very difficult to do anything. Parenting was really put to the test. You had to be a little more creative in the house. Whether it was learn to play backgammon, teach them how to play backgammon, play Monopoly, which was board games we grew up on, Sorry, Trouble, Operation. A lot of games came right back to the forefront from when we grew up, because that's what it came down to. Along with internet games and things of this nature that, was also new, that the children showed the parents. Hey, you can get on here and do this here on the laptop, Mom, Dad. So everybody was learning from each other at that time. And that was a good thing that came out of COVID, where we as parents actually had to learn from our children. And you children actually got to see and understand some of the things we did that you guys don't get, because you guys have these computers. We didn't have the computers when we were growing up. For some of us parents who are older. So they got to see what we did before computers were around. That was one of the best things I thought came out of COVID. Some of these parents, I think, dropped the ball on continuing that. Once COVID was lifted, they felt like, enough's enough. I want to get back to my life, and that was your life. That was the best opportune time for you to kindle a relationship with your children. Mend some of the broken bridges that might have occurred all the way up until that point. That was a key time that should have been taken advantage of for relationships between parent and child. So,
before we go, please remember to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. For any comments, do so down in the comments section below. Thank you. This is Arthur Reynolds, your host of Assorted Duties. Until next time.